Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Power wears a crown, but observation holds the dagger. Science has proven that human beings miss nearly 80% of subtle behavioral cues in social interactions. But Sigma females? They're the exception. While most people get hypnotized by the alpha female's commanding presence, the Sigma female is quietly dissecting the fine print others can't even see. She notices the cracks in the confidence, the loneliness hiding behind the applause, the truth buried beneath the performance. Where everyone else cheers, she smirks, because she knows what's real and what's staged. And the funniest part? The alpha female rarely realizes she's being read like a children's book by someone who doesn't even need to open the cover. So today we're diving into the uncensored, brutally honest things Sigma females catch in alpha females. The details so subtle and raw that almost no one else has the eyes to see. Number 1, she notices how alphas use strength as armor. Strength is the alpha female's badge of honor. She carries it everywhere, in the way she talks, how she handles pressure, how she never lets anyone see her flinch. To the outside world, it looks flawless, almost enviable. But the Sigma female sees through it. She notices that this strength, the very thing people worship, isn't always natural resilience. More often it's armor, it's protection. It's a shield carefully built to cover up insecurities the alpha would never allow to surface. What makes it intriguing is how convincing this armor is. Most people are so dazzled by the alpha's boldness that they don't stop to ask whether it's authentic or just strategic. The Sigma female, however, doesn't fall for the display. She catches the tension in the alpha's tone when control is threatened, the way her laughter stretches a little too wide when she's trying to dismiss a wound, the way she doubles down on authority whenever she feels her inner doubts creeping in. The mask is polished, but to the Sigma's eyes, the cracks are always visible. The irony here is brutal. The alpha female's power is admired because it looks untouchable, yet its very purpose is to guard what feels vulnerable. Every act of dominance is also an act of defense. Every moment of unshakable confidence is, in a way, a silent declaration. I can't afford to be seen weak. That constant guarding exhausts her, but she can't stop, because dropping the armor would mean risking exposure. And exposure is the one thing an alpha dreads most. The Sigma female doesn't envy that kind of strength. She sees the cost of it too clearly. It's heavy. It requires constant maintenance. It leaves the alpha locked inside her own performance, never fully able to relax. To the Sigma, true power doesn't need to be shouted or displayed. It simply exists, quietly and unbothered. That's why she can recognize when another woman's toughness is less about freedom and more about fear. While the crowd claps for the alpha's resilience, the Sigma just nods to herself. She knows that what looks like unbreakable steel is often a shield hiding the most fragile parts of a woman's soul, and she respects the strength but never mistakes it for peace. Number 2, she recognizes the silent fear behind their roar. The alpha female's voice often carries like thunder. It's bold, it's commanding, and it fills the room with certainty. People hear it and assume it comes from an unshakable core, a woman so sure of herself that nothing could possibly rattle her. But the Sigma female catches what others miss. Behind that roar, there's a quieter sound, fear. Not the kind of fear that freezes you, but the kind that drives you to push harder, louder, and faster, so no one ever notices it exists. The Sigma sees how much of the alpha's presence is powered by dread. It's not always ambition that keeps her moving. Often it's the terror of slipping out of relevance, of being overlooked, of losing the spotlight she's fought so hard to claim. Every confident stride has urgency behind it, as if slowing down would mean fading into the background. Every sharp opinion has a little edge of desperation, as if silence would expose her as replaceable. To the crowd, she's fearless. To the Sigma, she's in a constant battle with invisibility. This doesn't mean the alpha is weak. It means her confidence is fueled by pressure, not peace. And that difference matters. Confidence born of peace allows you to rest, to step back, to exist without proving. Confidence born of fear demands constant proof. It needs the applause, the recognition, the control. Without those, the alpha's roar shrinks, and that's the part most people never get to see. The sigma, with her quiet eyes, catches the weight behind the performance. There's almost a tragic beauty in it. The alpha is admired because she seems untouchable, yet her entire empire is built on the silent dread of losing what she's gained. She can't admit it, because that would dismantle the image she's crafted. So she roars louder, shines brighter, and pushes further, hoping no one notices the trembling underneath. The Sigma female doesn't mock this fear. She just sees it for what it is, the hidden fuel that makes the alpha both powerful and fragile at the same time. While others only hear the roar, the Sigma hears the silence behind it, and that's why she'll never mistake noise for true strength. Number 3. She catches the manipulation disguised as empathy. The alpha female is often celebrated for her charisma. She knows how to smile at the right moment, how to tilt her voice with concern, how to make someone feel like they're the center of her attention. Most people soak it up, convinced they're being valued, listened to, and even protected. But the Sigma female doesn't buy into the act so easily. Her eye is too sharp, her instincts too clean. She notices when that warmth isn't flowing naturally, but being deployed with precision, like a chess move dressed in kindness. The Sigma sees the subtle rhythm of it. The alpha's empathy tends to arrive when it gives her influence. She's generous with encouragement when it keeps people loyal, sympathetic when it ensures trust, comforting when it builds alliances. It's not that she's incapable of genuine care, but the Sigma notices how often that care is tied to strategy. The same smile that reassures someone is also the smile that locks them into the alpha's orbit. What feels like compassion to most looks like leverage to the Sigma. This doesn't mean the alpha is malicious. It means she's tactical. She understands that human beings respond more strongly to kindness than to authority alone. By softening her dominance with emotional intelligence, she creates a kind of power that looks nurturing but is still control at its core. Most people miss this duality because they're too busy being flattered by the alpha's attention. But the Sigma female doesn't confuse charm for sincerity. She can sense when a hug is really a contract, when a listening ear is actually an investment, when care is less about healing and more about managing. What makes the Sigma's perception so unnerving is that she isn't fooled, but she doesn't announce it either. She doesn't call the alpha out or expose her tactics to others. She just watches, quietly acknowledging that the empathy everyone praises is often a mask for manipulation. And that's the difference. While the crowd feels grateful, the Sigma feels alert. She knows the alpha's warmth can comfort, but it can also control. To her, the skill is impressive, but it will never be mistaken for genuine connection. Number 4. She sees the fragility in their friendships. The alpha female often dazzles people with the size of her circle. She seems to know everyone, and everyone seems to want a piece of her. From the outside, it looks like unshakable popularity, a social empire built on charm and influence. But the Sigma female notices the cracks that others overlook. She sees that many of these connections aren't rooted in depth, but in convenience. They're transactional, not genuine. The alpha's friendships often revolve around access, influence, and mutual benefit rather than true emotional intimacy. The Sigma pays attention to the subtle dynamics. She notices how people gather around the alpha when she's at her peak, but how quickly some of them scatter when she no longer offers status or opportunity. She sees how much of the alpha's social circle survives on what can be gained, not what can be shared. To most people, it looks like loyalty. To the Sigma, it looks like networking disguised as friendship. What makes this fragile is the pressure it puts on the alpha herself. She has to keep giving energy, opportunities, validation to maintain those ties. The moment she stops feeding the dynamic, some of those so-called friendships fade away. The Sigma knows this is why the alpha rarely allows herself to slow down or step back. Deep down, she fears that doing so will expose just how conditional many of her relationships really are. The Sigma also notices the loneliness hidden in this arrangement. Surrounded by many, the alpha is often truly close to very few. The performance of strength and leadership that makes her admired also makes it harder for her to show vulnerability, and without vulnerability, genuine connection struggles to grow. While others envy the alpha's wide circle, the sigma sees the hollowness that lurks beneath the surface, a crowd that cheers loudly but doesn't always stay when the spotlight dims. This is why the sigma doesn't envy the alpha's social glow. She knows that 10 shallow ties can't equal one bond of trust. To her, the alpha's friendships are impressive but fragile, a web of connections that looks unbreakable until pressure reveals how easily it can unravel. Number 5. She sees how they're addicted to applause. The alpha female thrives in the spotlight. Crowds energize her, compliments fuel her, and admiration feels like oxygen. To everyone else, it looks like pure magnetism, the kind of effortless pull that makes people want to be around her. But the sigma female sees it differently. To her, it doesn't look effortless at all. It looks like a craving, a hunger that never ends, no matter how much applause pours in. The alpha isn't just enjoying recognition, she's feeding off it. And once you notice it, the pattern becomes impossible to unsee. The sigma female pays attention to what happens when the applause stops. That's where the truth slips out. Without the validation, the alpha's edges start to show. She gets restless, irritable, even insecure. It's as though silence feels like rejection. And while everyone else thinks the alpha just loves being the center of attention, the sigma realizes it goes deeper. She needs it. It's her lifeblood, her source of confidence, and the one thing she can't afford to lose. What makes this addiction fascinating is how invisible it is to most people. The alpha has perfected the art of disguising it as charm or leadership. Her drive to be seen is packaged so well that people admire it as ambition. But the sigma knows the difference between power that stands alone and power that collapses without witnesses. She sees how the alpha lights up when praised but dims when unnoticed. It's not strength, it's dependency. The tragedy, from the sigma's perspective, is that the alpha can never fully rest. She can't step back without risking the thing she's addicted to. Every achievement demands another. Every cheer only highlights the silence that will follow when the crowd moves on. That's why the alpha pushes herself so relentlessly. Because applause, like any high, fades quickly, and the next fix has to come soon. The sigma female doesn't envy this. She may admire the alpha's ability to command attention, but she also recognizes the trap it creates. Real freedom, to the sigma, comes from not needing the applause in the first place. While the alpha chases the next roar of approval, the sigma sits comfortably in silence, knowing her worth doesn't need an audience to exist. Number 6. She detects when the alpha is performing strength to hide weakness. The alpha female is often praised for her ability to push through anything. People see her powering forward under pressure, holding herself together when others would fall apart, and they clap in admiration. To them, it looks like pure strength, the mark of a woman who refuses to be broken. But the sigma female sees through the surface. She notices the subtle tension, the slight stiffness, the way the alpha's energy shifts when she's cornered. She knows that what's being celebrated as strength is sometimes nothing more than a desperate refusal to look vulnerable. The sigma doesn't get distracted by the performance. She can tell when the alpha is forcing herself to keep moving, not because she feels powerful, but because she's terrified of what would happen if she stopped. It's not resilience. It's fear disguised as resilience. The alpha isn't always pushing through challenges to prove her capability. She's doing it to protect her image, to avoid letting anyone see that she's struggling inside. Vulnerability for her isn't just uncomfortable. It feels like a threat to her entire identity. That's the part others miss. To most people, an alpha's refusal to break down looks heroic. To the sigma, it looks exhausting. She notices the way the alpha rarely gives herself permission to fall apart, the way her strength becomes a kind of prison. Because once people expect you to always be unshakable, showing weakness becomes nearly impossible. So the alpha builds layer after layer of toughness, not realizing that it's slowly cutting her off from real connection and genuine relief. The sigma sees the cost of this constant performance. She knows that strength, when it's authentic, allows a woman to rest without fear. But when it's a mask, it drains more energy than it gives. That's why the alpha is often admired yet quietly burnt out, celebrated yet secretly aching. The crowd cheers because they believe they're watching power. The sigma doesn't cheer. She simply understands that the alpha's strength isn't always about thriving. Sometimes it's just survival, wrapped up in confidence and staged for applause. And that's the sigma's gift. She doesn't mistake the mask for the woman. She knows the difference between true resilience and the fear of ever being seen weak. Number 7. She sees the gap between public glory and private doubt. The alpha female is often the picture of confidence. In public, she glows with certainty, commanding attention with every move. People admire her as if she's bulletproof, a woman who knows exactly who she is and where she's going. But the sigma female notices the split. She sees how the alpha shines in front of others, then wrestles with shadows when the crowd is gone. Publicly, it's glory. Privately, it's doubt. And that gap is something only a keen observer like the sigma can catch. The sigma knows the signs. The alpha's words might be bold in the spotlight, but there's a subtle hesitation when she's alone, decisions she replays over and over after the applause has died down. While others believe her confidence is permanent, the sigma senses it's conditional, triggered by the stage, dependent on the energy of those who validate her. Without an audience, the alpha's certainty doesn't always hold. She questions herself, worries about slipping, wonders if the persona she projects is strong enough to last another day. This doesn't make the alpha fake, it makes her human. But the difference is that most people don't see the cracks. They buy into the performance and assume it's the full picture. The sigma, detached from the glow of admiration, notices the silence that follows the show. She knows that the very same woman who commands respect in public may sit quietly at night, second-guessing whether she deserves it all. To the sigma, that duality is revealing. It shows that the alpha's strength isn't always rooted in unshakable self-belief, but often in repetition, the constant effort of playing the part until the world believes it. The crowd sees glory and assumes it reflects an inner foundation. The sigma sees glory and knows it can sometimes be a mask built to keep private doubts hidden. And that's the sharp contrast. Where others admire the alpha as flawless, the sigma respects her for carrying both worlds at once, the roar of public applause and the whisper of private uncertainty. She understands that the alpha isn't as invincible as people think, and that's exactly why her power is both impressive and fragile. Number 8. Alphas often borrow energy instead of generating it. The alpha female looks unstoppable when she's surrounded by people. The energy in the room seems to pour into her, and she thrives on it. The applause, the laughter, the admiration, it all fuels her drive. To the outside world, it looks like raw, endless power. But the sigma female catches what's really happening. She sees that the alpha isn't always generating that energy herself. More often, she's borrowing it. She's feeding on the momentum of the crowd, the validation of followers, or even the tension of rivals. Her power feels abundant, but it's often borrowed, not built. The sigma female knows this because she operates differently. She doesn't need a room full of people to feel charged. In fact, solitude is her generator. Time alone fills her up in ways external validation never could. That's why she can sense when an alpha starts to fade the moment the audience disappears. The same woman who looks radiant at the center of attention often looks drained when no one's watching. The sigma notices the dependency, how the alpha's performance relies on the presence of others to stay alive. This dependency creates a cycle. The alpha pushes herself into the spotlight again and again because that's where her fuel comes from. Crowds are her charger. Praise is her battery pack. Rivals give her something to push against, and she thrives on the friction. But when those elements are gone, when there's no audience, no competition, no validation, the alpha's energy dips. That's the side most people never see. They assume her fire is constant, when in truth, it burns brightest only when others are feeding it. The sigma female doesn't mistake this for weakness, but she does see the risk. Borrowed energy always runs out, and it means the alpha must constantly chase the next source to stay lit. That's why the alpha can look powerful but restless at the same time, always needing movement, attention, or conflict to keep her momentum alive. The sigma, in contrast, never worries about the crowd. She knows her energy is self-sustaining, and that's why she notices the difference. The alpha shines loud, but the sigma's flame never flickers, even in silence. Number 9. Their drive isn't freedom, it's fear of slipping. The alpha female's ambition is usually painted as the gold standard. People admire her for always chasing the next milestone, always striving higher, always staying in motion. To the outside world, it looks like freedom. A woman living at full throttle, carving her path, and never settling. But the sigma female sees something others don't. She notices that this drive isn't always born out of passion or liberation. More often, it's born out of fear. Not the fear of failure itself, but the deeper terror of slipping into irrelevance. The sigma watches how the alpha's energy spikes whenever there's competition nearby, whenever someone threatens to outshine her. She sees the urgency behind the alpha's productivity, the way achievements pile up not only as victories, but as shields against invisibility. The applause of one day isn't enough. It must be replaced by a bigger applause the next. To the crowd, this looks like unstoppable ambition. To the sigma, it looks like panic disguised as progress. The difference is subtle, but important. True freedom is when ambition comes from curiosity, purpose, or genuine love for the work. Fear-driven ambition, on the other hand, has a frantic edge. It doesn't allow rest. It doesn't allow pause. The alpha can't step back because every still moment feels like losing ground. Every silence feels like being forgotten. The sigma sees how much pressure this creates, and she knows it's unsustainable. What others call passion, the sigma calls survival mode. The alpha may be celebrated as tireless, but in reality, she's exhausting herself trying to outrun a shadow. That shadow is irrelevance, the haunting thought that if she isn't always achieving, she'll stop mattering. The sigma recognizes this because she doesn't share the same fear. Her worth isn't tied to being seen or celebrated, so she doesn't chase recognition with the same desperation. She generates meaning in solitude, not in applause. And that's why the sigma sees through the illusion. She knows the alpha's drive isn't always the sign of a free woman soaring. It's often the mark of a woman running, fast, hard, and endlessly, not toward something, but away from the possibility of being forgotten. Number 10. She sees the burnout hidden behind the glow. The alpha female is often seen as unstoppable. She's the one who shows up first, leaves last, and still manages to look polished in between. People idolize her energy, convinced she's built from a different material than everyone else. But the sigma female sees the part no one wants to acknowledge, the cost. Behind the shine and stamina, she catches the toll, the sleepless nights, the relentless pressure, the moments of exhaustion hidden beneath a carefully rehearsed smile. The sigma notices what others overlook. The alpha might laugh loudly at a gathering, but her eyes betray fatigue. She might dominate a room, but her shoulders slump the second the door closes. People assume she's a bottomless well of energy, but the sigma knows no one runs at full speed without breaking down somewhere. The alpha's glow is often a mask, not a reflection of her true state, and maintaining that mask requires more effort than anyone clapping for her ever realizes. What makes it tricky is that burnout doesn't always look like collapse. For an alpha, burnout often disguises itself as overfunctioning, doing even more, staying even busier, proving she can carry it all. It's why she keeps smiling through stress, why she brushes off questions about her well-being, why she doubles down on productivity instead of slowing down. To the world, it looks like resilience. To the sigma, it looks like quiet desperation to keep up an image that's slowly draining her. The sigma understands that the alpha is trapped in her own expectations. Once people get used to seeing her as tireless, she feels she has no choice but to keep playing that role. Rest, softness, or slowing down would feel like betrayal to her reputation. So she burns herself at both ends, convinced that anything less than brilliance would make her irrelevant. While others cheer her glow, the sigma sees the cost of the light. She knows it's not infinite, that behind every polished moment is a woman pushing herself dangerously close to breaking. And that's the Sigma's sharpest observation. True strength isn't in how long you can fake energy, but in knowing when to protect yourself from burning out completely. Number 11. Alphas are often trapped in their own persona. The alpha female works hard to build her image. It's bold, magnetic, and commanding, the kind of presence that makes people stop and take notice. To everyone else, that image looks like pure power, something enviable and untouchable. But the Sigma female sees the hidden weight that comes with it. She notices that the alpha often becomes trapped in the very persona she created. Once the world expects her to always be strong, fearless, and flawless, she can't step out of the role without risking the throne she fought so hard to claim. The Sigma catches the strain in this. The alpha can never simply be tired, uncertain, or vulnerable because those moments would shatter the picture people hold of her. She has to keep playing the part even when she doesn't feel like it. Every interaction becomes a performance. Confidence rehearsed, dominance polished, charm delivered on cue. To most, it looks natural. To the Sigma, it looks like someone imprisoned by their own reputation. This trap isn't obvious to outsiders because the alpha hides it well. She keeps her smile wide, her voice steady, her authority intact. But the Sigma knows what it means to live without needing an audience, and that gives her the clarity to notice when someone else is chained to one. She sees the flickers of fatigue behind the alpha's bravado, the stiffness that comes when maintaining the act feels heavier than living authentically. The alpha may be adored, but she's also confined, locked in an identity she's afraid to lose. The irony is cruel. The image that gives the alpha her power is also what limits her freedom. She can't step down from the pedestal without people questioning her worth. She can't let the mask slip without risking her influence. So she stays in character, even when it drains her. The Sigma respects the strength it takes to hold that mask so consistently, but she doesn't envy it. To her, real power lies in being unshaken whether or not anyone is watching. And that's something the alpha, trapped in her own persona, rarely gets to experience. Where others see a queen, the Sigma sees a prisoner dressed in her own crown. Number 12. Their social power relies on followers, not independence. The alpha female's power often looks limitless. She walks into a room with people orbiting her. She speaks and others echo. She makes decisions and her circle rallies behind them. To outsiders, this looks like dominance, proof of her natural authority. But the Sigma female notices a different truth. She sees that this power isn't as self-sustaining as it appears. It relies heavily on followers, admirers, and a constant tribe of people reinforcing it. Strip the alpha of that support, and she's no longer the untouchable force everyone imagines. She's just another person. The Sigma understands the mechanics of influence, and she knows the alpha's is outward-facing. Her strength multiplies when there are people to validate it, reflect it, and amplify it. Without that, her authority doesn't carry the same weight. This isn't weakness in the conventional sense. It's a dependency built into the very design of alpha dominance. She needs a stage, an audience, and a group to lead. Otherwise, her role loses meaning. The Sigma notices the vulnerability this creates. The alpha may appear fearless, but her position depends on maintaining loyalty, admiration, and relevance in the eyes of others. When followers drift, when trends shift, when applause dims, the alpha's influence wobbles. The Sigma sees how precarious that really is. Power built not on independence, but on constant validation from the outside. It's why alphas work tirelessly to maintain their networks and reputations, why they invest so much energy in relationships that keep their status intact. The contrast is sharp. The Sigma doesn't need a tribe to validate her. She doesn't depend on an audience to feel significant. Her power comes from self-containment, from the ability to exist fully without external reinforcement. That's why she notices when the alpha's strength is actually more fragile than people realize. It's impressive, yes, but it's conditional. Others admire the alpha for her dominance. The Sigma respects it, but she also sees the cost, the hidden dependency that forces the alpha to constantly perform and maintain. For the Sigma, true power is measured by how well you stand when no one is clapping. By that measure, The alpha's glow is dazzling but not invincible. The truth is, the alpha female shines brilliantly in public. Her presence is magnetic, her dominance undeniable, her image polished to perfection. Most people never question it. They see the glow and call it power. But the Sigma female, detached and observant, sees the reality behind the curtain. She notices the hidden burnout, the dependency on applause, the fear disguised as ambition, the fragile friendships dressed as loyalty, and the mask of strength that sometimes conceals quiet doubt. This isn't about tearing the alpha down. It's about exposing the weight that comes with the throne she sits on, the pressure to perform, to maintain, to constantly feed an image that looks invincible but is far more fragile than people realize. The Sigma female understands these cracks, not because she envies the alpha, but because her own power is different. It doesn't depend on crowds, applause, or control. It comes from within, quiet, self-sustained, and unbothered by whether anyone notices it or not. And that's the contrast. Where the alpha often lives as a prisoner of her persona, the Sigma walks free in her solitude. Where the alpha borrows energy from the outside world, the Sigma generates her own. One commands attention, the other doesn't need it. One is admired for the glow, the other is respected for seeing beyond it. So while the world claps for the alpha, the Sigma simply watches, not fooled, not threatened, not impressed by performance. She knows that real power isn't in being adored by the crowd. Real power is being complete, even when the room is empty. If you've made it this far, you already see the game differently. You know the truth behind the shine, the cracks behind the crown, and the weight behind the alpha's power. And if this breakdown spoke to you, then don't just watch and leave. Join the circle. Hit that subscribe button, tap like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to hear what others never say out loud. This channel is where we cut through the noise and expose the raw truth. So stay connected, because what's coming next will go even deeper.